I've been on a kick of a particular podcast recently put on by a former Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink. Jocko Willink he was in the Navy SEAL teams for 20 years, and he learned a lot of leadership lessons, and so the podcast mainly takes on the kind of reality of passing on leadership skills. But one of the principles he holds in the military and in life in general that he's trying to put out there more is discipline equals freedom. Discipline equals freedom. This goes for everything that is worthwhile in life. Learning a new language, learning a sport, doing our job really well. Discipline will equal freedom in those areas if we hold to discipline. We can't rely on something that's different from discipline called motivation. Motivation is much like an emotion. It comes and goes in us. I've heard people say, hopefully I'll be motivated to go to Mass next Sunday. I'm like, motivation, you can't rely on that. Motivation won't get you up in the morning. Motivation won't, in fact, have you stay up late and finish a project, but discipline will. Discipline is something you control. Motivation is something you can't control, nor can you rely on it. And so to rely on it with a sort of whimsical kind of disposition is not good even in the spiritual life. But discipline will equal freedom even in the spiritual life, which is much more important than any other arena of life. Holding to one of the most basic disciplines of actually going to Mass every single Sunday without fail, we'll have to rely on discipline, because some days we won't want to get out of bed in the morning. We won't want to go to Mass. It's something in us that needs disciplining. It needs kind of that I'm going to go and worship God because He deserves it, not because I feel like it, right? I mean, that's the gist of it. Now, Mass, you get out of it what you put into it. So to come to Mass, we must put our whole self into it. All the things on our minds and hearts we bring here to worship God in this Mass, where we give thanks to Him. As we know, in the last 50 years, Catholics have not been attending Mass. In the last 50 years, it's been on a decline. Now, we know this. Now, God, though, is so good. He deserves better. He deserves so much better. More dedicated and disciplined sons and daughters. It's also the way, if we go to Mass, it's the way that we are faithful to His third commandment. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. Now, I don't know why people don't go to Mass. People have different excuses. But as one of my old bosses used to say, no excuses, just results. I'm like, yeah, that's good. It's like when Jesus healed those 10 lepers in the gospel today, but only one came back, and maybe that's you today. Maybe that's you and me today as we come to the Lord to give thanks to Him for salvation, the greatest gift we could have received, that God has won for us in Jesus Christ, that great salvation of our souls. No other relationship will save us when we die. No other relationship. Maybe the rest of us can make up for those who are not going to Mass by going to a daily Mass during the week. That way we sort of go a little extra and go a little further and love Jesus and thank Jesus more on behalf of others who are not, and even in reparation for others' neglect. We're called to be saints, and that's not an easy task. We need God's grace, and it is there in its fullness in the Mass. With lepers as a topic for today's gospel, I was reminded of Saint Damien of Molokai, the Hawaiian island of Molokai. Damien was born in 1840 in Belgium and took on the 4th century martyr physician named Damien. And when Father Damien literally washed up on the shores of Molokai, that Hawaiian island, in 1864, there were 800 lepers in that leper colony on Molokai. They were helpless and they were hopeless. it was a dark atmosphere. He brought the light. When he arrived, there were only 200 Catholics among them. But within a year, 600 were Catholics. And within 2 years, all 800 were Catholics. So what was his secret? Was he charming and charismatic? No. He was simply Jesus Christ to those lepers. He laid down his life for them with no regard for his own health. Families of the lepers even came and started to settle in Molokai because they sensed that there was light there, even in the midst of the darkness of that illness. When he gave them the anointing of the sick, that sacrament, he laid his bare hands on them, just like Jesus did, without fearing the leprosy. Where does he get his strength? From his daily prayer, the discipline of daily prayer, celebrating Mass every single day, dressing as a priest every single day. He slept on the floor, which burns me a little bit. I'm like, man, I was just thinking about getting a new mattress. But no, I should probably lay on that floor a little bit more. He did that all the way up until a few weeks before his death, which he died of leprosy, in fact. He was canonized as Saint October 11th in 2009. The Mass was so important to him. It was the source of his strength. The Mass was important to every single saint down through the ages. And there are only saints in heaven. There's only saints. So what are we trying to become in this time in our life right now? I hope it is to become saints. That is our one goal. And I pray, if we hope for heaven, that we are trying for that. And even if we come to our deaths having tried to become a saint, that's a good place to be. You can be at peace if you have tried. Saints are sinners who keep trying and keep on. Even if they fall from their disciplines, they keep getting back up and keep going. And it's not easy. But it begins really with that attendance of Mass, the most basic part of it, to worship God there in the way that he asked us to do. Do this in memory of me. He told us to do this specific thing. And it's so basic, but our whole self is required in it. And you get out of it what you put into it. Let us worship God on Sundays in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. And in fact, to be joyful in it. Not just like, this is my discipline, and discipline equals freedom, but I love God. He's loved me so much. This is something so small for me to give back to him in gratitude for what he's done for me. And they say that the more we meditate on the Passion, the more our faith becomes more alive. So I would encourage us to meditate on the Passion a little bit more. Today, John Henry Cardinal Newman was canonized a saint, in fact, a number of hours ago, and he has beautiful the Stations of the Cross that he wrote are beautiful. And take those maybe once a week. So a lot of saints did that once a week to meditate on the Passion. That way also, we start to see more of the elements of the Passion in the Mass itself. Let us worship the Lord now in the Mass so that God is thanked for having healed us of our leprosy, of sin and death. Here, we are a people that thank him so that he may not have died in vain.